So for step 1, charging the battery pack. Well, again, I like to wait. There's no point in charging the battery before we've even got the car built. So we are actually just going to move right into step 2, which is the motor mount. And you can see that we need to pull together some bearings. We need to grab these two pieces, but we won't be building it this way. We're going to grab the supplemental instruction manual because we need to look at motor position, because I want the motor to sit central. So at the high position means that the motor is equal. It's centered over the chassis, so it should give us more traction. So we're going to use this manual to put this together before we move on to step 3, which is the spur gear. So I'll set this up and we'll put together step 2. So first off, let's grab our A2 piece, because this doesn't change no matter which manual you've got. So we pop that in there, and we'll grab the other bearing, we'll pop that in there. You'll also notice that it shows putting grease. Now, if you were using the plastic bearings, I would say, yep, definitely do that. But because we're using the ball bearings, I don't use grease on these things. So that is how that piece is going to go together. So we're good to go. Now, obviously, if we were following this instruction, we would set this up like that. And this, if you can see how this piece here would slide into there, and we'd lock it in with the 4 screws that way. But we are not going to build it this way because we want it to be in the high position. So we're changing the motor position. So that means if you look at how this is, we now need this honeycomb pattern facing that way, and now it's up and down. So this piece that has this part of the circle, basically you can see where the screws are, but it's basically protruding out. This is now sitting into this piece that way. So it's up and down. And we need to put in the 4 screws, the 3x12, which it doesn't show it on here, but the 3x12 is still in the original manual, and they are these ones right here. So we need to put those through. So seeing how that goes together, the screws come in from the back side, and we just need to screw it together. So I'll start it here. I'm going to put one in, then I'm going to flip to the other side. Just from experience, if you're building a kit like this for the first time, I like to go around, make sure that all the screws are going in, nothing is binding, and then once we know that all the screws are in, I can then start to screw everything down. You'll find that if you were to put one in and screw it all the way, sometimes it's not aligned properly and the other screws won't go in. So I much prefer to just kind of do this by going all the way around and slowly just get everyone going in, because you'll just have a nicer fit. You don't have to do it that way, but I find it's the best overall. Now, the other thing is the 2 pieces we're working with are hard plastic. That means that when you're using these tapping screws, when you get to the end, you're going to know you're at the end because it won't go any farther. If it was the soft plastic, which you'll see as we go along, they can still be turned in even if they're at the end, and then you could risk stripping them out. But we're okay because this is solid plastic. So there we go. There is our motor mount in the upright positioning. So when you look at the instructions here, you can see that there is a supplemental instruction also showing you that the placement of the receiver and the ESC are going to change based on the fact that we don't have the motor on the side, the motor is up in the middle. But that is it. We are finished with this motor position manual bit in the supplemental manual. So step 2 is complete. So now we're going to move on to step 3 and work on the spur gear. So for step 3, the spur gear, this is where we're going to attach the spur gear to the motor mount that we just finished putting together in the previous step. So there are the parts that we need. There's our spur gear, a couple of smaller shafts. We've got the spur gear shaft, and then these two pieces here. Now, if you look at the instructions, this one needs some rubber cement. That's just designed to hold it in place so that it doesn't fall out. This one will actually need grease once we've got this attached. And then once that goes on, we have this little piece here, C1, that is basically going to lock it in place. And it's designed this way so that if at a later date you wanted to take this all apart and make it the front wheel drive version, this little clip can be popped off and the shaft and everything else can be slid out. So I'll set everything up and we'll put this spur gear together. So first off, in this step, we need to put a little bit of rubber cement on this. Now, you don't need to use a lot. So I'm just going to wipe off a lot of this excess. That should do it. And you can see that for this, it's the MA-10, which is the smaller shaft. Just get a little bit on there. And we'll grab the shaft and we'll slide that in just like that. And I mean, it's just going to hold it a little bit while it dries, and then it won't pop out because you can see how it's stuck in there. It's not popping out on either side. So then we're going to grab our spur gear, and you can see that that has to slide down and into there. So it's in place. And I pulled it tighter and it's okay. It's where it should be, but you can see it pops out a bit, but let's just leave it at that for now. Then you can see that if I was to hold this in a bit here, we need to grab our motor mount. This is going to slide through our piece that we put in with the bearings, just like that, just going to sit right like that. And on the other side, you can see that we've got our small pin, which they're saying they want you to grease this one. So I've opened up the tube of grease. We'll just grease this up a bit. It kind of exploded a little bit when I put a hole in the top of that, but that's okay. We're going to take this and we're going to slide it into there. Just like that. Now I'm going to spin it a bit so that it's horizontal, makes it level. And now you can see that this, the C4 piece, you can see the way that's aligned, that has to sit over top of that. Just like that. And I'm making sure that I've got that pushed in all the way as well. But you can see how that is sitting inside of there. Now, ultimately, we have this piece here, which is going to be used to lock this into place. So you can see with the diagram how that's going to go. You can see that there is a hole on either side where that pin is. So this needs to be pulled apart so that it fits in there correctly. So as an example, the way that is showing, you can see that they're showing it up and down, but that's that spot right there. So this needs to pop on that way. So we've got to kind of push this open a bit so that it will lock itself into place in those spots. Now I've got one side going here. This side needs to be pulled up a bit and slid over. There we go. You heard the click. So now it still needs to be pushed in. There we go. And that side Same idea. It needs to be to lift a bit and over. It's just not quite clicking into place. So I'm going to move that over just a touch so that we can get that in. Actually, I think we've done it now. We have. So that is in place. Just doing a last little check here, because that seems like it's not gripped in yet. Why? That should fit into the hole, just like it did. I don't know. So it might just be a little fiddly because you're just making sure that that actually is sticking into the hole, but it actually has worked now. So that piece now is in place. It's not going anywhere. It's not going to fall out because that little piece is actually clipped in to this plastic piece and blocks that pin from leaving. So it's done. Nice. So that means that our spur gear is in place. So step 3 is done. So now we're going to move on to step 4 and attach the pinion gear.